Hey guys, tonight we begin somewhere very far from your cozy air-conditioned bedroom. You're waking up on the frozen grasslands of Mongolia, in a time before toothpaste, personal boundaries, or snooze buttons. The Mongol Empire is stirring, and you're right in the middle of it. You're wrapped in a blanket that smells like fermented goat dreams. Your face is half numb from the wind, and your alarm clock this morning. It's a horse snorting in your face. And no, he doesn't care about your feelings. Honestly, you wouldn't last a day here. But it's cute that you're trying, so before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, while you're at it, tell me in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You blink into the pre-dawn darkness, already regretting your life choices. Your boots are frozen, your nose hairs feel like tiny icicles, and somewhere to your left, something shifts heavily. It's your horse again. Congratulations. He's your mattress, your bodyguard, and if things go poorly later, your emergency ration. Personal spaces for people who don't share a sleeping bag with their transportation without a word. The camp around you dissolves like mist. Riders drift away into the half-light. No roll call, no morning briefing, just the soft clatter of hooves fading into the distance. You scramble to your feet, your joints cracking like overused saddle leather. A boy rides past, barely 10 years old, already more warrior than you'll ever be, with a bow longer than his body and a yawn that suggests this is all very routine. His saddle is older than your family tree. His horse doesn't wait for him. To finish yawning, you chew on something that might once have been meat. It's hard, dry, and unapologetic. If your jaw wasn't strong before, it'll be by lunchtime. Assuming, of course, you make it to lunchtime. Your horse looks at you the way baristas look at complicated coffee orders, tired, unimpressed, and faintly hostile. You swing yourself into the saddle. There are no stirrups, no warm-up stretches, and absolutely no deep-breathing mindfulness moments. You ride. Because here, if you're not riding, you're just part of the landscape. And landscapes don't complain when they freeze to death. The first blast of wind hits like unpaid taxes. Sharp, relentless, and indifferent to your excuses. This isn't the cute poetic wind from Instagram quotes. This is the kind of wind that strips the moisture from your eyeballs and makes your cheeks feel like beef jerky left in the sun too long. 3 ridges later, your face is entirely numb. You could be smiling or sobbing. No one would know, and frankly, no one would care. This is the step. It doesn't do feelings. The only thing softer than the wind is the ground you'll hit if you fall off. Spoiler, it's still pretty hard. And here's your first historical fun fact of the night. Mongol riders often carried multiple horses and switched between them to avoid exhausting any one animal. Today alone, by noon, you'll swap horses twice. Not because your comfort is irrelevant, but because the horse needs a break. If your horse collapses, you'll be expected to carry your own gear. Balance, they call it. Brutal, practical balance. Your body is beginning to understand something. Your mind still resists. The saddle is your home now. You urinate from horseback. You eat from horseback. You will eventually fight from horseback if you fall off. Well, that's called natural selection. The sun rises reluctantly, spilling weak light over an endless, featureless sea of grass. There are no roads here, no signposts, no GPS rerouting. Just the instinct of your fellow riders, and a horizon so far away it looks like a rumor. You ride into that horizon because everyone else does. Because in the Mongol Empire, walking is for prisoners, and you are not a prisoner. Not yet. By mid-morning, the wind has gnawed through your resolve. Your hands are stiff, your thighs ache, and your stomach is beginning to ask awkward questions about breakfast. But there is no pause, no campfire, no omelette station. You chew another piece of dried meat. This one fights back like an angry wallet. You consider crying, but your tears freeze before they fall. And while we're on the topic of discomfort, let me drop you a little known tidbit. Mongols were some of the earliest adopters of lamellar armor for their horses, not just themselves. That's right, the horses wore armor before it was mainstream. So while you're shivering under layers of crusty wool, your horse is strutting around like an armored SUV. Some historians still argue over how much coordination it took to manage these mobile armored units without the use of radios or flags. Personally, I think it was a combination of sheer discipline and the kind of silent teamwork that only comes from knowing your life depends on it. Meanwhile, the sky darkens not from clouds but from the sheer endlessness of the day ahead. You've already lost track of time. Nobody's checking a clock. You'll ride until you stop, or until you can't. Those are your only options. The Empire doesn't measure life in hours. It measures it in distances covered and enemies outlasted. The second horse switch happens faster. You barely have time to dismount, stretch your legs which scream in protest, and climb onto the next mount before the caravan is moving again. No one congratulates you, no one even looks. Falling behind is your problem. Another gust of wind cuts across your face, like an unpaid loan shark. The only thing protecting you is a layer of dried sweat and whatever scraps of fur you remembered to wear this morning. If you didn't remember, well, the wolves will thank you later. Still, the horizon waits, and so do you. Not because you want to, but because no one survives alone out here, and survival, not comfort, is the only currency that matters. The sun has barely crawled past the horizon when your hunger finally stages a rebellion. But breakfast, here, isn't a comforting bowl of oats or a buttery croissant. It's a dare. Someone hands you a leather sack, stained and sloshing ominously, and offers no explanation. You raise it to your lips because that's what survival demands, that it hits your throat like liquid regret. This is arag, fermented mare's milk, white, sour, slightly fizzy, and roughly the flavor profile of an old gym sock soaked in vinegar and courage. It's alcoholic, but not the fun kind. More like the kind that reminds you bacteria exist and they've made your esophagus their weekend retreat. Children drink this, grandmothers drink this, battle-hardened warriors gulp it down like spring water. You cough, your stomach protests, but you swallow anyway. Because out here refusal isn't an option, it's a liability. No one claps you on the back. No one says, "Nice first drink, rookie." They just shove a hunk of dried mutton in your Derek Shungray tough. And with the charm of last week's laundry, you chew it for 20 minutes. It doesn't get smaller, it just gets wetter. You question your life decisions with every bite. And for dessert, a chunk of curd. Not the cuddly dog breed. This is a sun-dried dairy brick so hard you could use it as a weapon. It tastes like sour chalk and feels like chewing on disappointment. If your dentist could see you now, he'd be weeping into his gold fillings across from you. An old man has already finished eating, tied a new knot in his saddle strap, and is now sharpening a blade with the kind of focus usually reserved for brain surgery or IKEA assembly instructions. You consider asking what's in the stew pot nearby. You decide not to. Smart move. In the Mongol Empire, curiosity is a luxury for people with full stomachs. And speaking of luxury, here's a strange little fact for your collection. Mongols sometimes boiled horse hooves into broth, not wasting a single scrap of their animals. That faint scent drifting through camp. Probably someone's lunch bubbling into gelatin. Historians still debate just how much of this frugality was necessity versus practicality. Either way, no one here is throwing away edible collagen. There are no forks, no spoons, and absolutely no napkins. You wipe your greasy hands on your sleeve, which doubles as your towel, tablecloth, and emergency bandage. Across the clearing, your horse is chewing on something that might once have been a tent pole. He's not picky, and neither are you. You try to join a conversation. Joke's on you, there isn't one. Mongols don't chat idly over meals. They eat like they ride fast, quiet, and ready to bolt at the first sign of trouble. The wind is your soundtrack, low and constant, like a badly tuned white noise machine. The meal leaves you slightly less starving, but nowhere near full, and in the Mongol Empire, that's called success. You pack your gear, swing onto your horse again, and ride. There's no resting after eating. That's how you end up as Wolf Chow. Now your body has questions, like, when do you wash? Answer, you don't. Cleanliness here is not about fragrant soaps or hot baths. It's about not dying from infection, and even that's negotiable. You smell like leather, meat, smoke, wet wool, and whatever your boots are fermenting into, but so does everyone else. If someone showed up smelling like lavender and citrus, they'd be labeled a spy or worse, French water. That's for drinking. You want to scrub your armpits with river water. Enjoy dysentery with your fresh scent. Otherwise, wipe your face with your dusty sleeve and get over yourself. There is no soap, but there is animal fat. There is sand. And if you're feeling fancy, you can rub a handful of dust across your cheeks and call it exfoliation. Congratulations, you've just invented the steppes' first spa day. You scratch your head, dislodging something small and determined. Lice. You don't fight them, you manage them. Sometimes you name them, and in the evenings you flick them into the campfire during deep conversations about conquest and fermented dairy. Your clothes, wool, thick, stiff, and vaguely resentful. They've been worn for at least 3 winters, and they still have goat blood on them from an argument you barely remember winning. You don't change clothes, you layer them, add more in winter, peel them off in summer underwear. That's a rumor shame, a forgotten concept in your teeth. Bless them, they're your own problem. No toothbrushes, no mouthwash, just the occasional hope that the acidity of your breakfast will dissolve whatever's stuck between your molars. If that doesn't work, you keep a knife handy. Not for enemies, well maybe, but for that one rebellious tooth that finally gives up on life. If all this sounds unbearable, congratulations, you're still alive. The people who didn't adapt, they're fertilizer now. Your horse snorts, reminding you it's time to move again. You stretch your legs, creaking like an old door hinge, and swing into the saddle. No one waits. No one checks if you're ready. And as you ride on, bumping along with every uneven patch of frozen grass, the wind whispers an uncomfortable truth into your ear. This life isn't built for comfort, it's built for motion. The horizon wavers ahead of you, a shimmering blur of endless grasslands and biting air. But still, you ride. Because the alternative is worse, and somewhere in the distance, where the sky meets the earth in an uncertain line, the faint shapes of riders begin to form. Small now, but growing larger, they're coming. And they're probably not here to share fermented milk and recipes, but that's tomorrow's problem. Today you survive, just barely. The distant figures grow sharper with each hoofbeat, resolving from vague shadows into men, bows, and the kind of grim intent that doesn't need an introduction. You feel your pulse quicken, though the cold wind steals most of your breath before you can panic properly. There's no rallying cry, no inspiring speech from a bearded general, just a shared glance between riders and the quiet, practiced shuffle of fingers reaching for arrows. You fumble with your bow, hands stiff from cold and fear. Mongol bows aren't toys. Short, curved, and layered with horn and sinew, they pack enough punch to punch right through armor. If your draw is weak, the bow will remind you painfully. Your horse keeps moving. Stopping would be embarrassing. Dying while stationary is frowned upon here. You notch an arrow, twisting your torso as you ride, and loose it into the wind. The string snaps with a sharp thrum, and somewhere in the distance a man falls. Or maybe he ducks. Either way, you're alive for another second. There are no sword duels on this battlefield, no cinematic one-on-one clashes. Just arrows, relentless, intelligent arrows, fired from the back of galloping horses. Mongol warfare is math, not poetry. Distance, speed, trajectory calculated faster than your freezing brain can comprehend. And here's your odd fact of the night. Mongol archers sometimes carried poisoned arrows, laced with plant toxins or fermented venom, not because they were cruel, but because a wounded enemy slows down the rest of the unit trying to save him. Pragmatic to the last breath. Historians still debate exactly how widespread this use of poison was. Some argue it was common practice. Others think it was reserved for particularly nasty enemies. Either way, your arrows aren't just sharp, they're a tactical inconvenience. The enemy tries to close in. Big mistake. You pivot, lean into the wind, and retreat. Not in fear, but by design. This is the famous feigned retreat. Let them chase you, let them taste false victory, and then turn around and shoot them in the throat. It's less dramatic than it sounds. More effective, too. Arrows whistle past you like angry bees with commitment. Issues you duck instinctively, even though, at this speed, what hits you will hit before you know it's coming. A rider beside you fires 3 arrows in as many breaths, his face calm, almost bored. Another warrior lets out a short laugh as his target tumbles from the saddle. Not mocking, just routine. You've now fired maybe 50 arrows. You lost count somewhere around 30, when your fingers went numb and your survival instinct took over your math skills. But that's fine. You have more arrows hanging from your saddle. Mongols didn't believe in running out of ammunition, they believed in preparation. The battle doesn't end with a grand finale. There are no victory horns or flag-waving celebrations. By sunset, the fighting simply stops. Those who aren't dead right away. Those who aren't, well, they're not your concern anymore. No one counts the fallen. No one builds a memorial. You're still alive. That's all that matters. You wipe your blade clean on a patch of grass that probably didn't deserve it. Dinner is waiting, and by dinner I mean whatever animal got the worst of today's skirmish. The sun dips behind the ridges, casting long shadows across the steppe. A fire crackles nearby, and you gather around it with the others. No one speaks of the fight. No one boasts. You just eat. Tonight's meal is something vaguely goat-shaped, roasted on an iron spit so old it might qualify as an antique. The meat is tough, chewy, and has that special lived-through 3 winters flavor. You tear into it like your ancestors are watching, and they probably are shaking their heads and wondering why you haven't eaten the fat yet. That's the good part. The fat sticks to your ribs, keeps your soul from freezing overnight across from you. A warrior gnaws a rib clean, licks it with quiet satisfaction, and tosses the bone behind him like he's planting a future goat. Another rider sharpens his knife, the sound slicing through the quiet more sharply than your thoughts. The crackling. Fire is your only background music. And in your bowl because, yes, sometimes you're allowed a bowl as something that might be soup, or might be regret in liquid form. You don't ask, you drink. Curiosity is dangerous here. Mongols eat like they fight, fast, silent, and ready to move at any moment. You try to match their pace. You fail, but they don't laugh. They just eat faster. After dinner there are no songs, no parades, no post-battle celebrations, just the dull rhythm of cleaning weapons, checking saddles, and if you're lucky closing your eyes beside a snoring horse. And here's another little-known gem. Mongol warriors prized their bows so highly that some gave them names, like pets, or maybe like smartphones. If smartphones could kill you from 300 yards, they treated their weapons better than their tents, and sometimes better than their comrades. Scholars still argue whether these bows were truly superior to European longbows in raw power, but in terms of portability and speed, there's no question. The Mongol bow was the sniper rifle of its time. You roll into your fell-trapped bedroll, still wearing the same clothes, still reeking of battle, smoke, and desperation. Your horse shifts beside you, radiating warmth like an unwilling space heater. You nestle closer, not for comfort, but for survival. Tomorrow, you'll ride again, not because you want to, because the Empire never stops moving, and neither can you. The fire burns low, casting shadows that dance like ghosts across the steppe. Somewhere beyond the camp, wolves argue with the wind over who's scarier. You close your eyes and hope you don't find out the answer before morning, and just like that, the steppe swallows another day whole. No fanfare, no closure. Just darkness, breath, and the faint smell of burnt hoof stew lingering in the air. You wake before dawn, though calling it waking is generous. You were never really asleep, just resting your bones beside the steady warmth of your horse's flank, listening to the endless whisper of wind and distant howls. Your joints protest as you sit up, your breath fogging in the frigid air. Morning in the Mongol Empire doesn't ease you into the day. It hits you like a thrown boot. No one announces the start of the march. There's no morning bugle, no rise and shine. Pep talk. Riders are already mounting up, adjusting their saddles, tightening their belts, chewing their breakfast with the enthusiasm of someone gnawing on a shoe sole. You do the same. There's no other choice. Breakfast is exactly as inviting as yesterday. Another leather sack of arag, still fizzy, still questionable. You take a swig. It burns going down, reminding you once again that your digestive system is an unwilling participant in this historical reenactment. As for food, more dried mutton. If it were any tougher, you'd need a chisel. There's also a surprise today, a lump of hard cheese that doubles as a bludgeoning weapon. You gnaw on it until your jaw feels like it's done a full CrossFit session. Someone nearby sneezes, wiping their nose on the same sleeve they used to sharpen their knife. Hygiene here is minimalist. And speaking of hygiene, let's dispel a little myth. Mongols didn't bathe often. True, but they also weren't filthy by accident. Water was too precious to waste on baths. Instead, they used ash, sand, and occasionally animal fat as improvised cleansers. It wasn't about smelling good. It was about not freezing to death with wet skin. Some historians argue whether they truly despised bathing or simply prioritized survival over comfort. What's clear is that anyone showing up freshly perfumed would have been treated with deep suspicion. Possibly killed, possibly recruited as bait for wolves. Your hands are cracked and filthy, your nails more like claws than anything else. Your hair hasn't seen water in months, but it's neatly tied beneath your cap. Appearance still matters, just not the clean kind, the functional, windproof, lice-accommodating kind. And yes, lice are your constant companions now. You've stopped being surprised when one crawls across your sleeve during a meal. Some evenings, riders sit by the fire and flick lice into the flames, watching them sizzle with quiet satisfaction. If that sounds gross, congratulations, you're still soft. The caravan moves out, no route is announced. You ride in the general direction of conquest, hunger, and whatever poor soul is unfortunate enough to be on today's itinerary. The landscape stretches endlessly in every direction, an ocean of grass that could swallow armies whole without blinking. The wind cuts sideways. Today, not the decorative kind of wind that flutters your hair romantically. No, this is wind with a personal grudge. It tears through your clothing, strips the moisture from your mouth, and makes you question every decision that led you here. Your horse presses forward without complaint. You wish you could say the same. Here's your weird historical nugget for the day. Mongol horses were known for their endurance and their ability to survive on minimal food. They could graze on frozen grass, drink ice-melt water, and still carry a rider for miles. These weren't pampered parade ponies. They were furry, four-legged survival machines. Some chronicles even claim they could be milked, slaughtered, and eaten by their riders if times got truly desperate. Scholars still debate whether this versatility was due more to breeding or brutal necessity. Probably both. Either way, your horse is doing a better job at surviving than you are. By midday, your face is numb, your legs are sore, and your stomach is wondering when it accidentally signed up for this. You've switched horses again. You don't get attached. Horses are tools here, not pets. If your mount falters, you swap it out and keep going. Compassion comes second. Survival comes first. And still, the horizon stretches on. There are no towns in sight, no cozy roadside inns, just the endless grasslands and the occasional ruined outpost, reminders of past conquests or failed settlements. You pass what might be a former caravan camp, now nothing but bones and tattered cloth blowing in the wind. No one speaks. Words are wasted out here. If you fall behind, no one turns back. You're expected to keep up or be forgotten. If you drop dead from exhaustion, wolves will find you before your comrades notice you're missing. The rhythm of hoofbeats fills your ears, blending with the wind until it feels like a heartbeat larger than yourself. It's hypnotic in a way, numbing your thoughts, narrowing your world to the rise and fall of your saddle and the rough grip of your reins. And then, in the distance, a blur, a cluster of shapes, too regular to be natural. Riders, maybe friends, maybe enemies. No one tells you which. That's your job to find out, probably at full gallop and while dodging arrows. The captain raises a hand, and just like that, the entire column shifts formation without a word. You fall into place, nerves jangling but fingers steady on your bow. There's a strange calm in this moment. Between the thunder of hooves and the storm of battle, the wind hums through your layers of wool and leather. Your horse breathes steadily beneath you, and for a brief second, you're part of something vast and unstoppable. And then someone shouts and you ride hard, fast, unrelenting. The steppe stretches out before you, and for the first time today, you stop feeling like a visitor and start feeling like a storm. It's terrifying and exhilarating, and somewhere, the riders ahead are about to learn the difference between seeing a Mongol army on the horizon and trying to survive one. But that's a lesson for later. For now, you tighten your grip, lean into the wind, and charge.